The whole point of this was to make it, kind of more above board, less expensive for the buyer, and it's just muddied the waters completely. Calling it something different did nothing.
Yeah. If you remember, they're like, bring me your offers, right? I'm going to price this wherever I want. I'm going to put it up $100,000 and you can pay the money over the appraised amount. And we're like,
you get a house. You get a house.
It was a gold rush, right? And so it's like you just had this clamoring. Negotiation is the new skill set that has to be learned.
No question.
You need to understand the psychology and how to speak and frame concepts in a way that can be understood and that can get you to your desired result. Period. All right, guys, the NAR settlement has taken effect, or the results of the NAR settlement have taken effect. We are in the aftermath, and we, at the time we're recording this podcast, we're what, 2 weeks removed from it?
Yep.
And so we are tired, but a good tired, because we've been talking to agents constantly about this. We did a three session training on what to do, how to have conversations with buyers, sellers, agents on the other side. We created some scripting. If you don't know about this, go to we have a private group. It's the Agent Bridge private group
on Facebook.
Can we put this in the show notes?
Yeah.
Go join. All of those trainings are in there, and then you can watch them. But it's been a really interesting ride to talk about this, to work through the concepts of it, to actually see this play out in real time and to see what's happening. And so I want to talk about just like what has happened in the past couple of weeks and what we potentially see for the future. The first thing that I would say is things are largely the same. There's more conversations. There's more like talk. As I've talked to agents on the other side of transactions, most of them are kind of like, okay, well, how does this work again? How do we do this? And so, but largely not much has changed.
Yeah, no, I would say the first question is usually, well, do I still have to offer compensation?
Yeah.
And we have a script for that. If you join the group, there's some downloads that go along with some of the sessions that we did. They're all free. And they walk through some of this, but yeah, I mean, I think the conversation then just flows into, well, you don't have to, but here's the value in doing so. And every single person I've talked to is like, yeah, we still want to offer compensation. We had an agent on the podcast last week, which it hasn't quite been released yet, but it will be by the time you see this episode.
That's right.
She said that she had, I think, 40, 50 listings and all of them wanted to offer compensation. So I think, yes, the answer is largely the same. I think everything is going to continue on. I would say 80% or more of the transactions that we see will work just like they did before.
Yeah, and the other interesting part, and there's some conceptual things that I want to work through here. Okay, but first I want to talk about Michael Ketchmark and his, this attorney and his, remarks. He's like, "Hey, we'll be watching you," and I'm kind of like, "Yeah, okay, thanks." And basically what he's referring to is, hey, you can't put compensation on the MLS. Okay. So that's what from a legal perspective, they're policing. And who cares about whether the freaking compensation is on the MLS or not? Now I got to make a phone call. And that's the result of this. That's only the result of this whole thing is we can't put compensation on the MLS. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, whatever. Especially in Tennessee, where we have a seller concession box now, which you can see it's very clearly like 3% or 2.5% of the purchase price.
The whole point of this was to make it, kind of more above board, less expensive for the buyer. And it's just muddied the waters completely. Moving it from one box to another and, calling it something different did nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be any less expensive for the buyer because guess what? Now they may have to pay for it themselves if a seller gets a hold of the news and it's like, hey, I don't have to anymore and I'm not going to.
Yeah. One of the things that's been interesting for me and just like understanding myself and how I'm reacting, because we still have clients that are buying and selling. So one of the main things is my confidence in asking for compensation more than what is offered in seller concessions when I've talked to the agent. So for instance, like before, if somebody put like 2.5% on the MLS, I just kind of took it in the chin. Like I'm not going to go ask for more. And I think probably a lot of agents said, hey, can I go ask for more? I was like, yeah, I mean, you can, but it's probably going to be, they're probably not going to go for it. Now I have a lot more confidence about asking for it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's not something that I anticipated internally for me, that I would perceive it that way. But now it's like, hey, look, now this is all up for grabs. So if they tell me it's like, well, we'll give you 2.5%, I'm asking for 3.
Yeah.
In the offer.
Absolutely.
And I always could, but it's just interesting now how that has become a part of the conversation in my own mind.
Yeah. It just brought it to light a bit more.
I think that's the deal. Or maybe just the idea of that all of this is sort of negotiable, but I'm going to ask for more if you're not offering 3%. Anyway, I don't know that I would have anticipated that, but it brings to light one of the concepts that's out there right now, which is like, hey, who cares? Just put your compensation in there as a part of the offer. Don't worry about what the seller has agreed to concede on the front end. And, I'm still kind of working through that concept, if that's a good idea or not, how that will play out. But I kind of just generally agree with it.
Yeah. What I like about this, and I shared this in the NAR settlement training that we did, is, people viewed you as a door opener. Like it or not, that's the way we were viewed in our industry, and that's our fault because we weren't showing our value. We weren't talking about the value that we provide. We were opening doors and writing contracts. And yes, great agents were already doing these things, but we weren't talking about it because we didn't have to.
Sure.
Now it's kind of brought it to light that people need to shop for the best agent for them because now they potentially need to pay for it.
Yeah.
And people don't value what they don't pay for, right? So if it was always thought that the seller was paying for it, well, I as a buyer don't necessarily value that because I'm not paying for it. But now they do, or in some essence, they could. And so they're shopping around for the best agents. The great agents are going to rise to the top. And that is what I do like about what's come out of the settlement.
Yeah, I love that part of it. It's like now we're having the discussion on the front end, right? People are signing agreements on the front end. We're able to clearly explain the value. And so, I think ultimately it will prove to be a good thing for good agents, right? Yeah. Now, for a lot of agents who are really struggling with that, what I would tell you is like, hey, first of all, go to the trainings. We got a downloadable script you can get, and go look through that and wrap your brain around the concept of it. But you need to level up, right, as a real estate agent. So make sure that you're taking the time to educate yourself properly. The other thing that's been surprising is how many agents have no idea what to do, and how many clients don't even know about it.
Yeah. We're running into a lot of agents that are scared. And when we do the NAR training sessions, what the gist that we get back is that, hey, I just feel better. Now that I'm talking about this and learning more about the options that I have and learning more about what my responsibilities are going forward, I just feel better. So I think it is good to just educate yourself about the entirety of the situation, hear from other people about the situations they're running into, and it will make you feel better about what we're headed into.
Yeah. So we're just seeing all of this stuff come to light. So let's just kind of go through some of these things like one by one. We're seeing a few sellers. So we had we talked about this just a minute ago, but for a real estate agent who had like a ton of listings, out of all of those, 4 of them said, hey, I don't want to offer buyer agent compensation. And her point was, well, do you really want to make it harder for a buyer to buy your house right now? And because, there's all these issues with, affordability and interest rates, and there's other, your competition is offering that compensation. So do you really want that buyer to have to, take the weight of you not offering the compensation? And so after that conversation, those sellers came to see her side of it and ended up offering that buyer's agent compensation anyway. And so, again, I would say that's a small percentage of those sellers that are aware and that are saying, hey, I don't want to offer it. But the reality of it is they're probably going to end up anyway.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a larger percentage of sellers trying the no compensation thing early on as we work through this. But I think most will circle back to seeing the reality of the situation that, hey, it's more advantageous for me to just offer this.
Yeah.
That's what I believe will happen.
Right. The next thing would just be buyers that are not wanting to sign listing agreements. And again, this is an 80-20 thing, maybe of 10 buyers, maybe 2 of them have some trepidation about signing this. But most of our interactions with buyers, in terms of signing that thing, have been completely fine. The fear would be like, hey, do I have to pay this if you're not if the seller isn't offering it. And that's been the most sort of challenging thing to conceptually work through for a buyer. And one of the things that we said in the scripting is like, hey, for buyers, the conversation that I'm typically having with them is like, hey, in most cases, the seller is willing to offer buyer's agent compensation. In the fraction of homes that are not offering, there are multiple ways that it can get paid for. We can work it into the offer. I can ask for it as a part of the offer. We can work it into the loan. And so just having them understand there are options, and NAR has given us the ability also to amend some of those things. So all in all, it's just about working that client through understanding that, hey, this agreement, right? There's multiple ways for this to play out, right? And we can kind of cover that when we get to negotiation.
Most buyers who don't want to sign agreements, you probably didn't have that buyer consultation that we preach about on almost every episode. So do those going forward. You should. It's going to make buyers feel better about signing an agreement. But two, they're going to run into this every agent they find. So just because they won't sign one with you, if they think they go to the next agent, they won't have to sign one. That's not the case. Right. Like, they're going to need to sign one at some point. So do a great job at educating them both on the process and your value. And 99% of the time, I really believe that they'll sign the agreement and move forward, as long as you do a great buyer consultation.
Okay, the other one we're running into is like builders and or listing agents wanting to see your buyer's agent compensation, which frankly ticks me off a bit, because from a contractual perspective, that is an agreement between me and my buyer. Doesn't have anything to do with you, right? On the selling side. And so I've seen this kind of like pop up here and there. And first of all, again, NAR has given us the ability to amend my agreement with my buyer. But that's between me and them, right? As a listing agent or a builder, I don't have to show you that. And it really should be generally irrelevant. What should be relevant to you is the contract that's being signed between the buyer and the seller, not between the buyer and the buyer's agent.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, nobody ever asked to see like listing agreements.
Exactly.
Like, so it's like, why is this any different? And it is. It's between you and the buyer. It has nothing to do with them. If they have a certain percentage they offer, they need to offer it, and regardless of what you have signed.
Yeah, and my sense of it is like, you only want to see it to see if you can go down.
Right.
Because if I've got a buyer's agent agreement signed with them for 5%, which I'm free to do, okay, if I have it signed for 5%, are you going to pay more? Probably not. So why don't you let me worry about this agreement and you worry about yours? But I think that's a knee jerk to the marketplace.
No, it is. All that stuff will go away, I believe.
Yeah. The thing that, as difficult as this recent market has been, we've obviously seen a slowdown. Like, what do our numbers look like on that slowdown as of today? I mean, they're like homes sold year over year. So we've seen an uptick from month over month, but
yeah,
down
like 4%. Yeah.
I think we're down to like, COVID, like when COVID first hit numbers. I see a graph that said that in terms of home sales.
That sounds about right.
Okay. So it doesn't mean homes aren't selling, but obviously all of us are feeling, this market shift, this market change.
I think it was just because it's so drastic. You went with like pants on fire to pretty slow.
Yeah. Well, when we started the year, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. I was like, oh, okay, things are moving.
Well,
we got some momentum.
I just mean from COVID to now.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Okay. So anyway, but market conditions now really are a blessing as this settlement rolls out, because if you were trying to deal with this in a multiple offer, scenario, it's a lot more difficult. Or if sellers are more high on their horse, like they were in COVID and post-COVID market. If you remember, they're like, bring me your offers, right? I'm going to price this wherever I want. I'm going to put it up $100,000 and you can pay the money over the appraised amount. And we're like, all of this stuff. And sellers had just this massive ego when it came to their house. Like, I've got like gold.
You get a house. You get a house.
It was a gold rush, right? And so it's like you just had this clamoring. And now sellers are like, and I think probably sellers could have gotten away with, not offering buyer's agent compensation because there was such a rush on homes. But now it's like, well, they want to incentivize buyer's agents to bring their buyers. They want to incentivize buyers by not having to pay their agent. So I think really this is a blessing in disguise that the market was a little slower when the results of this came out, because we're dealing with it in a more balanced market. So we're not seeing the, results of duress.
Yep.
Okay. So, but I think probably my biggest takeaway from this whole thing is that negotiation is the new skill set that has to be learned.
No question.
You need to understand the psychology and how to speak and frame concepts in a way that can be understood and that can get you to your desired result. Period. And the way that you do that, first of all, is by focusing on learning about this new skill set. We're going to put a book list in the show notes too of negotiation books. We taught a class yesterday. That was the number one thing that was asked for from that class. Is like, hey, do you have a book list that I can start reading on negotiation? When we do, we'll put it in the show notes. But negotiation is what's going to make the difference between you achieving the desired result or you playing defense all the time. And there needs to be time spent on developing this skill. Yeah. I can guarantee it.
Learning to sell, super important skill. Learning to negotiate, super important skill. So if you spend time reading, spend time on those two concepts.
Absolutely. And another takeaway, so besides negotiation, is I think open houses are going to be coming back. Not that they ever went away. We've always taught in Six Figure School how to capitalize on open houses, how to get clients from open houses, and it has worked in a big way. But now, as people are
wanting to see
properties, and they may not want to sign a document with a real estate agent to go view them, open houses are the place where they can start viewing property, right? They can start getting out there, start shopping without having to sign anything. So I think that that's a great opportunity for you as real estate agents to showcase your professionalism.
Also, I would say that I've run into buyers a lot that aren't even aware of this. So let's start there. But I've run into a lot of buyers too that think that there's no other way to get their buyer agent paid than to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
And in those scenarios, they're like, hey, if I find my house at open house, I don't have to pay the buyer's agent. I can just work through the seller. Mm-hmm. So people see that as an opportunity. So that's your job. That's your opportunity as a seller's agent to try to grab some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, use that, capitalize on that opportunity. But all in all, I'd say like 80% of this is largely the same, right? It's a little more conversation, a little more sort of conceptualizing a solution, as all of this information is new. But as this is rolling out, it's like, things are still moving. Things are still selling. Agents are getting paid. The world didn't, collapse, and we can all move forward now. And continue to improve your skill set and continue to improve your ability and your professionalism and be a standout in the marketplace, right? Educate yourself, continue building. Any final words from you?
Nope, I think we covered it.
Awesome. Guys, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye.